Hey everybody, I want to talk to you about this Ilco today, and I can pick it while I kind of tell you about it to kind of save time in this video. I bought it for a couple reasons. Number one was I had really good luck impressioning a herd lock, and it was an antique lock, and it was a lot of fun to do. And so I bought it because I had no key, and it was just a really neat lock, and I figured I'd impression a key for it, but that was not the case. And these guys are kind of a tough pick because even though they're 5 pins and there's no security pins, you've got a really, really good, or I guess really good tolerance on these, where if you try to bind up these pins, they're either all going to bind up or none of them are going to bind up. It doesn't usually have one that's isolated. So pretty neat how they made things back then. I'm not sure if this is, and you can see I'm having trouble with this guy. It should be open right now. But I'm not sure if this was, let me start over, if this was a military lock or like an old U.S. government lock, or if it was for the railroad, because you see it's got this chain here. So that, I'm guessing that kept the lock hooked to something, so no one walked off with it when they're in the place that they had this locked up. So I can't find any markings on it other than I'll show you on the bottom. There's that it's KX77-8, I think. But this guy, like I said, not very quick to open, especially for a novice lock picker like me. Number 5 seems pretty bound up. I'm gonna give him a touch. Maybe start over one more time. I'm only 2 minutes in. And I'm trying to work around the camera here, so I'm in a little awkward positioning. Normally, when I'm just working on this, it practically pops up in my hands now, because I've been fiddling with it so much. And I'm going to see what's going on here. Okay. And trying to find a binder, but these things are so hard to find a binder in. There, I overset something. So I just gave it a little rake, and whatever I overset dropped down. So, geez, 2 minutes and 34 seconds. This old lock kept me out for, like I said, really tight clearances. But anyhow, you can see I had to alter it a little bit. But this was 10 ounces in the description. That's another reason I thought it was a really cool lock, because oops, screw fell, that nut fell off. But anyhow, this was 10 ounces, and it's a very big, robust lock. It's not that big, but it's just really heavy. And I'll show you some of the issues I had with impressioning it, and hopefully this will help you guys in the future. If you want to try and impression one of these, I suggest just open it like I did, but I'll just show you what happened to me. This is the first attempt at impressioning. And you can see I failed because I was sawing into the base of the blade there where no pin would ever reach. So I knew that's where I gave up there. And you can see there I was just filing wherever I saw marks. I really didn't have any clue where the pins were. So, oops, I lost my focus there. So anyhow, I got them really close together, and I don't know why I didn't notice up front, but you can see that I didn't use any of the end of that key. And so I just assumed they were all really close together, and that's why I didn't use it. But then I found out later that they're actually spread out along the length of that. And I guess first tip there would be know your spacing on your pins, so you know where to look for the marks. And another tip I have is, I don't know if you guys noticed this finger in any of my other videos, but it's got a big callus, which is a result of a blister that's now cracked. But I really messed up my finger and my thumb trying to rock this in the lock. So another recommendation I have for impressioning, especially if you got a really tough lock that you can't get into, is either buy or make your own impressioning handle for one of these. Some people just use a pair of vice grips, but that can mess up the key. So I know there's a video on YouTube by Padlock, and I'll put a link to it in my description there if you want to check it out. He has a really good video on how to make your own impressioning tool, which I am probably going to do to save my fingers in the future. But just for this project, I went ahead and just used vice grips. And this was my second attempt. And what I did was I stuck a pick down in the keyway here, and I pushed it up against the first pin, and then I drew a line across it with a little Sharpie, and I measured that line. And then I added a 30-second to it, because the pins look like they're about a 1/16 of an inch wide. So I added a 30-second to it. And then I took my pick back in, I pushed up the first pin and went to the second pin and pushed up against that. And then drew a line like the other one and measured that and added a 30-second to it. So that's how I got my first 2 marks. And then I did the rest, all 5 of them like that. And I wrote them down. And I took my next blank and I marked each one. I measured it with a ruler as close as I could get it, and I marked each one. And like I said, that was hopefully going to tell me where to look for my marks, so I knew, where they would show up. And as you can see, even with having all the pins marked, or where I thought the pins were marked, still hit that point of no return. So it still wasn't talking. It still was keeping its mouth shut as far as how to get into it. So then I did some more research, and I found this blank here. And this is a excess number 70. So the reason it appealed to me a little bit better was since I wasn't getting good marks on the wide, flat surface of the blade of these keys, this one had a little bit thinner blade. And I even took it up a notch by taking a file and filing both sides until it came up to a nice, really sharp point. And my thinking in that was, if it's a really sharp point, it'll be kind of flimsy, so I won't have to press as hard, and those pins won't have to be as sharp to make a mark in there. But as you can see here, I still could not get this thing to impression, and I just kind of quit on this one, because you can see I marked out all where I thought my pins were, and then I started getting all these other marks in other places. So I just said, this isn't going to work, this is not going to work. And I had 1 blank left, because I always buy blanks in 2s, because I always screw up the first one, or just in case I screw up the first one. But so that one was shot. So then I knew impression was kind of out of the question. I had kind of got to peek down in this keyway here, and you can see the pins on them. And I'll show you after I got it. But you can see the pins on them are not really sharp, like a modern day key pin. Like when you gotta lock those pins, they're kind of sharp, and that's what leaves the impressions on them. So I thought, maybe that had something to do with it. So I started searching the lock for a seam, and you can obviously see now the seams and where I had the pins. But when this thing was finished, brand new, or not brand new, but without me tampering with it, you could not see these pins for anything, or this seam right here. But I kind of had to hold it up to the light and look at it, and then finally that pin revealed himself. And so I knocked that pin out. I made a little jig here. And basically all it is a 2x4 with a hole drilled into it, so I can set the pin over it and hammer it out. And another thing I was going to recommend is, I dropped those pins. I actually bent one of the pins here, if you can see that. And I bent it because it came out of the side. I tried straightening it, but it looks like heck. But let's see if this will be a better run around. Nope. There we go. But anyway, you can see I kind of straightened it, but I bent it because while I was hammering it out, it kind of hit on the edge here. I mean, just really close. And this brass was so soft it actually bent it. So these, I can't get these to go back in. So what I did was I bought these little screws, and they've got nuts in the back. Well, the one fell off, but they've got nuts in the back, and that's what holds the lock together now. And the reason, and I could get new brass rods and put those in there, but I like the fact that I can gut this now and show people what's inside of this. So I left it like that for now. Eventually I might do it. But anyhow, after I knocked that pin out, this seam started to open up, and that pin started to reveal itself. So I was like, all right. So originally I thought this pin held the core in. I know there's a lot of old locks where it has a pin just going through like a notch in the core, and then once you knock that pin out or drill it out, the core will fall out. So when I knocked that pin out and the core didn't fall out, I was kind of, wondering what's going on. And then I saw this pin. So I knocked this pin out, and I'll show you what happened. I'll take the nut off of this one. And I should have got longer bolts, but the beggars can't be choosers when it comes to these bolts, because they're pretty hard to find, these really little guys. So anyhow, after I got those pins out, I'm going to move this out of the way so I don't have a big block of wood in most of my video. And so I got those bolts out, or those pins, and the bottom dropped out like that. And I thought, I thought I was in, and then I realized the shackle is keeping this from coming out. So I had to pick it again. I had to put the pins back in to kind of hold it together and pick it again. But I'm just going to use the key this time to save time. And we're going to open it up. And I'm going to take the key out. And then I'm going to swivel the shackle all the way around to here. And this is really neat because this will now drop down to the point where I'm not sure if you can see that or not, but there's a little square pin in there. There he is, right there. That little square pin. That goes into a notch in the shackle. And that's what holds that shackle in. And it's just so cool that the clearance is just like so perfect on that you can only get to a certain point, and that's the point where that pin is. So it was pretty tough to get out because it was kind of rusty, but I'm going to use this little pin I got that'll push him out. And now he's out. So just a little square pin, kind of really neat little guy. But I haven't cleaned it off yet too. So now the shackle and the body will come off. And now essentially this is the core. I know it looks like a lot of stuff, but this is the core. And it also has a shackle spring in here. And take a look at this here. I didn't do that. That's not from me. I believe that's from the lock opening and shutting so many times that the spring rubbed against the inside of that wall there and wore through. So I think this lock was used quite a bit. I think there's another reason why those key pins are so dull. They're not sharp anymore. They've been flattened from the key going in and out of the keyhole. So essentially you've got the core here, and I'm going to pop out a key pin, or actually all the key pins, and I'm going to show you the difference and kind of give you my excuse anyway as to why I couldn't get this thing impression, and why I think this was such a challenge. So I'll get those pins out of there, or those screws out of there real quick. And there's one, there's two. Get those guys out of there, and that's just taking off. It's getting that the actuator for the shackle out of there. That's the thing that hits the shackle there. But all this is brass. It's got brass screws, all brass parts. Really, really, really cool little lock. Once I got in there, and when I took this apart, it was just amazing to me to think that I am the first person in probably, decades to touch this part of the lock, because the last person to touch that was the guy or lady who put it together. And that was back when this lock was made, however long ago. I'm not sure exactly how long ago it was, but I got a 11/32 socket here I use as a follower. That seems to work real well. I've got my keys lined up. Let's see if I can push this out without making a big old mess. Alright, so I'm not going to show you the driver pins or anything like that, because they're just round driver pins. They're not anything serrated or anything like that Yale I showed you what it was. But I'm going to go ahead and dump these out, and then I'll bring the camera up and we can take a look at those. Put them in a spot here, just kind of clean out a spot. But sorry, my hand's going crazy in there. So I'm just going to dump those out, and we'll set them up. Get my tweezers here. We'll just set them up in a row here, and I'll get you down there so you can really take a look at those and see why I think, anyway, I couldn't get impressions done on those. There we go. Okay, so I might edit that part out, so if I'm jumping back to this, I'm not doing anything secretive. I just don't need to put a 15-minute video of me trying to focus on these pins in there. But anyhow, you can see this is a key pin here out of a not a brand new, but a more modern Schlage, and you can see the tip on that. Even after, it came out of an old house, so you can see it still has quite a bit of a tip on there, even from people coming and going. And then these, you can just see, are just like domes. There's no peak on them whatsoever. So that's why I'm thinking that those couldn't leave a mark on my key. So check those out, when you're looking for a lock to make an impression for, and make sure you can get those nice pointed key pins. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you very much for watching, and please don't use any of this information for anything illegal. And I appreciate all the subscribers and all your support. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.